Welcome aboard, Captain.
Hey there guys, welcome back to lesson 2, and in this lesson we are going to create our layout, we are going to create our create view, and we are also going to store a task inside of the database. So the first thing that we need to do is create our layout. And we don't need this, sorry, that was open from my previous recording that I completely screwed up. Anyways, so let's go into our resources folder, let's go to our views, let's make a new folder called layouts, and in this layouts folder we're going to have a new file named main.blade.php. So what we need here is a couple of different things. We're going to need HTML5 markup, and this title is going to be to-do list app. And we are going to have a dash there. And if you remember from our previous tutorial, we're going to yield our title right there. And well, let's see here. Let's go ahead and import a few things. We need Bootstrap. And we also are going to need, down here, we're going to need our Bootstrap JS file. And so let's grab those. We'll go to getbootstrap.com. Go to the documentation page, grab the CSS right here, copy that up into our head, and our bootstrap JavaScript. We are going to copy this JavaScript here. These are going to be the 3 lines. We're importing jQuery, we're importing Popper, and we're importing Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and import those things, and we will save that. And if we go, we don't need our welcome.blade.php anymore, so we can actually go ahead and just delete that. And we're going to create a new folder inside of our views, and this is going to be called tasks. And in that tasks folder, we're going to create a create.blade.php file. And here's that. And we're going to extend the layouts.main extends layouts.main. We're going to create a section called title, and we're going to go ahead and pass in as a second parameter the title, which is going to be our create task. Wow, I can't type today. And section, we're going to have that one as content, and this is where we're going to put our form and all of that stuff. And section, all right, wonderful. And this is just going to have a row, and inside that row there's going to be a call small 12, and inside of that there's going to be an h1 tag, and this is going to be create task. All right, and we're going to go back to our welcome or our main.blade.php. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a container. And that container is also going to have a margin top of 3. And then inside of that, we are going to yield our content. And now let's go ahead and open up our app, HTTP, controllers, tasks controller, go to our create, and we are going to return the view of tasks.create. And we'll save that, and we'll go back to our localhost. We'll go /task/create, and right here, wonderful, we have imported everything correctly and we are good to go there. So one of the things that we are going to do is create a component, and this component is going to be our form. Now there's a couple of different ways we can do this. We can do it either in a component, or we can do it in using the Laravel collective, and we can create our own form. I forget what they call it. Let's see here. They call it a custom component. So we can either create a custom component, or we can just create a component and import it using Blade. I'm thinking that this registering a custom component with Laravel Collective, that's going to be in our advanced tutorial because it has to do with service providers and all of that stuff. So we're going to save that for our advanced course. But for right now, we're just going to create a component. So component, right? Yes, component. And this is going to be components dot task form. And we also have to end the component as well. This is not like yielding a section where we have, at end yield. That doesn't work here. So we need to actually end the component. So we'll save that. And if you refresh, you'll actually see view components.taskform not found. So let's go ahead and create a new folder in our views, and we'll call this components. And inside the components, we'll create a new file called task form. Make sure to capitalize that F if you capitalized it in your create.blade.php file. And then we'll do taskform.blade.php. And this is where we're going to put all of our form. So let's go ahead and import Laravel Collective real quick. And how we're going to do that is we're just going to go ahead and copy this right here, which is composer required, Laravel Collective /HTML. We're going to go back to our terminal, and we are going to paste that in. And this is going to require Laravel Collective inside of our project. So now we need to go to add a new provider, and this can be found in our config app.php. So let's copy this here, which is the collective HTML service provider, and we are going to open up config app. We're going to scroll down until we reach the providers. See this right here? And we'll have this nice little block of Laravel framework service providers. And then right here, it gives us a wonderful area where we can put a package service provider. So let's just copy that in there. Make sure that you have the comma at the end or else it will break. And we also need to add two different aliases, form and HTML. Now, we're not going to use HTML for this particular course, but we might use that in the future. So we'll copy both of them just in case. And we'll scroll down a little bit further. This is going to go into our aliases. And what I like to do is I like to give a couple of different, or a couple of enter spaces, couple of new lines, and paste that in there. And what I also like to do is copy this comment block here and paste that here, but instead of service providers, I'm going to just call this aliases. Wonderful. We'll save that, and we will exit out of that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, open up a new form. And how do we do that? We use curly braces bang bang, and that is going to be our curly braces with 2 exclamation points, and we are going to call form open. And in that open, we are going to pass an array. That array is going to be a couple of different things. The first parameter we're going to do is our route, and that route is going to be tasks.store. Or is it tasks? I think it's just tasks.store because it's our task route. And then the second thing is going to be our method, and that is going to be store. And that's going to be that. And then in order to close the form, we're going to do curly braces bang bang again, and we're going to do form, and we're going to do close. All right, now we have our form here, and that's it. Now this, by using the form open, we already are taking into account the CSRF token. And if you save this and go back and refresh the page, and you go to view page source, you can actually see right here that the input name underscore token has been added automatically for us. So that'll be good to go. So the method is automatically switched from store to post. Now we can use either store or post here. Either one works. I guess we'll go with post because that's how our route is defined. Store is our inside of our controller. That's the method that we're using, but the method that the form should be using is post for the route. So we'll go ahead and use post here. So first thing that we're going to do is we are going to go back to our Laravel collective, and we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at labels. Here we go. All right, so this is the one we want here, specifying extra HTML attributes on the label. So we are going to copy this form label email address as email address. It's form label, and then this is the for field. This is what the text is inside of the label, and then this is the class that associates with that label. So we'll copy that. And don't forget to add a curly braces, just the curly braces. You don't need it to be curly bang bang. You will save that, or you will paste that into there and get rid of the semicolon. You do not need the semicolon. So the first thing that we're going to do is change this from email to name. And this is going to be name, task name. And the class is going to be form control. And the next thing we're going to do is introduce another Laravel collective, and that is text. And you can specify this with form text, and then it's the same exact thing. This is going to be the value, not the placeholder, but the value. And then this is going to be the name, which you want to associate with your label. So let's work this out. So it's going to be form : text, and then this is going to also be called name because that's what we have here for our label. And then the value we're actually going to leave as blank. It's going to be null. So we're going to pass in null. And then the next thing we're going to pass in is our class. And this has to be inside of an array. And the class is going to be form control, and we're also going to put form control large on this just because it's the name. And then the other thing we're going to pass into the array is the placeholder, and that placeholder is going to be task name. All right, let's save that and take a look and see how it looks. Awesome. So let's see here. What did I do wrong? Labels, and I think I might have done something wrong here, and let me open up something here real quick and take a look. I will be right back. Alright, so it's actually not form control, it's actually control label. And that's what it is. Alright, now we can go back, refresh. Now it looks good. Alright, so basically we can copy and paste this for the description. And the description is actually going to be a little bit different. Instead of text, it's going to be text area. And the label name is going to be description. And the reason that we're using name and description for the input names is because we want to have the same exact name for the inputs as we do the columns in the table. And let me show you exactly what I mean. We'll open up our SQL Pro here. We'll connect to Laravel real quick and go to our tutorials.todo. And we'll go to tasks. So we have the name column and we have the description column. Now we also need a due date, but we don't need to create it at and update it at field because these will automatically be assigned for us. So will the ID. So this is good to go, but we also, for this label right here, we want to give it some margin or else it will bump right up next to the text area. So we also do not need a placeholder, or actually yes, we'll have a placeholder here, and we'll just call this task description, but we do not need the class form control large. We will save that and take a look, see how it looks. Wonderful, looks awesome. And we need to change that label for task description. Save that, refresh, boom, task description. And then the last thing that we need is date. Here we go. All right, so form date, and this is going to be our to-do date, and it's going to be slash carbon. That's importing the carbon service provider, and that will automatically get us today's date. So we'll copy this into here, and we will paste that into there, and we'll also just copy this label right here and paste it into there, and this is going to be date, and we're going to call this due date. There we go, and we will save that and take a look at what it looks like. Wonderful, and that's perfect. Now I'm wondering whether or not input, we'll just look at that. I'm not sure if dates have a input for Bootstrap. Well, let's just take a look. So the second one, we'll just pass in a array class, and let's see if it does anything. Form control, save, refresh. Actually, yeah, it does. Wonderful. All right, cool. So there's that. Looks great. Wonderful. And that's our form. So now all we need is a submit button. And the way we're going to do this is just really simple. We're going to do a row, and that row is going to have a call, or we're going to have a row, and then that row is also going to have a class of justify content center, and we're going to do a column small 6, and inside that column we are going to have a button, and that button is going to have a class of btn block, and it's also going to have btn success as well. And we'll go ahead and put this as create task, and we're going to do a type of submit. Wonderful. We'll save that, refresh, and there we go. And let's also add some margin onto the top of this row, mt3, margin 3, refresh, boom. There we go. So here's our create form. That easy. It wasn't too hard, wasn't too difficult. Again, if you want to go ahead and pause the video and take a look at this code, you can go ahead and do so. We're going to go ahead and continue on here. And what we want to do now is pass some information into this form and see if it goes to our store function or our store method. So this is just going to be a test task. And this is going to be, this is a description. And we're going to pass the date as 10/1/2018. Perfect. And now we're going to create the task. Wonderful. So as you can see, it's a blank screen. That's a good thing. And the reason that's a good thing is because now we can go to our tasks controller, go to our store, and we're just going to go ahead and return the request itself. And let's see what it outputs. Refresh. And wonderful. Awesome. So it's passed our token, it has passed our name, it has passed the description, and it has passed the date. That's wonderful. All right. So whenever we're using our store function, we want to do a few things. First, we want to validate the data. All right. And the next thing that we want to do is create a new task. Third thing we want to do is assign the task data from our request, and then we want to save the task. Then we want to flash a session message with success, and then we want to return a redirect. Now, if you remember from our last tutorial, we grabbed all of our Flash messages out of a file. So I'm also going to do that. We are going to look at our admin UI, I think, resources, views, global messages. Awesome. So we'll copy that, and we're going to go down to our resources, folder, into our views, and we're going to create a folder called partials. And in that partials folder, we're going to create a new one called messages.blade.php, and we're going to save that. All right, and this will be on our GitHub. I'm not going to go through and create all of this for you. This is just a copy and paste message with alert boxes and stuff like that. And also, if it has any validation errors, it will display the errors as well. So that's all going to be on our GitHub. You can copy and paste that into your code. Just go ahead and take a look at our GitHub. And in our layouts, main.blade.php, we are going to include partials _ messages, and that is going to be there. All right, so we will save that, and we don't need the main.blade.php anymore. So let's go back to our validating our data. So how do we validate our data? Or really, what's happening when we hit that submit button? Well, when we hit that submit button, the information is going into what's called a request. And this request is automatically grabbing all of the information past our form right here. So we have access to this request variable, and we can obviously look at the request and what it is pulling in. So what's really nice about this is it returns it as an object. So whenever I type in request, if I want to get request name, okay, I can just use request name. I don't have to loop through an array or use an array variable or anything like that. It's absolutely wonderful. However, validating the data is a little bit different. We're actually going to call a method that is actually not in this task's controller itself. It is actually in the base controller, which can be found right here in our controllers file. So we're going to call a method called validate. This validate. And the first parameter that's going to be passed in is the request, the whole request. And then we are going to pass the second parameter as an array. And we are going to make sure to have the semicolon. And then this array is going to validate the fields that we have in our request. So the first field that we have is name, right? And the second one that we have is description. And the third is our date, right? So we obviously want all of these to be required, right? So let's go ahead and type in required. So after that, we also want the name to be a string, right? So if you look above your return key or your enter key, there is a button between your backspace and your return key. If you hit shift and hit that button, it's going to be a solid up and down line. That's what we're going to be using in order to make the differentiates between what is, what we're validating for. So if I wanted to type in multiple things, I wouldn't type a comma like normal. I would actually type in that solid bar, I guess you could say. So we're going to call this a string. And we are also going to have a max of 255 characters because that's all that the MySQL database can handle. And we're also going to have a minimum of 3 characters. Simple enough. So the required for the description, obviously, and we want this to be a string, and we want it to be a max of 10,000. Okay, but instead of typing 10, 1,000, we're just going to type in 10,000. And then the minimum is going to be 10. Now the date, we are going to want it to be a date. And if you want to look up all of these validation rules, you can just go to laravel.com and type in available validation rules right here. And you can see all of these validation rules. So if we click on date, it'll ask, or it'll validate, making sure that it is, a valid date according to the string to time PHP function. Okay, that's cool. So the field, you also have a couple of different things as well. It's saying that the field under validation for date equals date must equal to the given date. The dates will be passed into the PHP string time function or whatever. So you can also make sure that the date equals today or tomorrow or 5 days from here or whatever. Also, you can have a format, whether or not you want to use the date or date format, when validating or not both, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just take a look at those. You'll understand. All right. So now that we have validated those, if there are any errors, it will automatically return the user back to the create page with an errors variable, and our messages partial will take care of that variable, and it will show you what the errors are. So the next thing that we want to do is create a new task. Awesome. We can do that really easy by just having a variable called task and setting it equal to new task. Simple as that. So we need to also import this task, and if we're going to use PHP companion, find use. Wonderful. Task has now been imported. So now we need to assign the task data from our request. So task name, because the task is an object, name equals request name. Obviously, both of these are considered objects, which makes things super easy to add things to each other. So we are going to duplicate this twice. We're going to rename the second one description and the third one date. Now what we have to do is save the task. That's easy enough. Laravel creates a helper function called task save. Boom, done, and it saves it into the database. Next thing that we want to do, we want to flash the session, so we will do session, and we're going to flash it, and we're going to have a success message, and we are going to say created task successfully. Awesome. Don't forget your semicolon, and we are going to return a redirect to a route, and that route is going to be task.create. And the reason we're going to return this to the create instead of the index page is because we have not created the index page. That's going to be on our next lesson. So we'll come back to this line here and edit that as soon as we create the index page. So we will save that. And if we did everything correct, everything should save to the database. So let's go back. We don't need to refresh this. All we need to do is hit create task again and see if it works. Hopefully it does. If we get any errors, we'll obviously troubleshoot them. And wonderful. Column not found, unknown column date in date field list. Wonderful. So here's our first error. So if you look at our SQL, this is actually called do_date. So we need to change this date to do_date here. And I'm also going to change that here in the validation, so do_date, and I'm going to go back to our form, and we're going to also change that here, do_date. The reason being is because we want fluidity between all of our views, all of our controllers, all of our routes, all of our databases. We want to have that same exact column name in all of it. All right, so we'll save that, We'll go back, we'll refresh this because we've changed that, and test task. And this is going to be, this is a description. And the due date is going to be 10/01/2018. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and create task and see if it works. All right, session not found. Okay, cool. So if it's gotten all the way to session flash success, that means that it actually saved the task into the database. So let's take a look at our database here real quick. We'll refresh. Wonderful. There you go. There's the first task in our database. As you can see, the created at and updated at columns have been added automatically, and we didn't have to do anything. So the only thing that we have to do is use PHP Companion, find, and we are going to use Illuminate Support Facade Session, save that, and we will actually just refresh this page and continue. And actually, because we had refreshed and continued it, we actually put 2 entries into our database. So we'll refresh this, you can see 2 entries. So we'll just delete this second one because it's not really important. All right, so that's it. That's the basics of storing a task into our database. I mean, it's not that very many lines of code. We've got maybe 20 lines of code here, and I want to say almost half of them are spaces and comments. So, you know, within 10, 12 lines of code, we've written, you know, easily what would have been 50 to 100 lines of code back in the day using PHP's PDO methods and storing raw SQL code and all of that stuff. You don't have to deal with any of that stuff. It's amazing. That's why I love Laravel so much. All right, guys. So that's it for today, I believe. I think I've gone over everything that we needed to. And then in our next tutorial, we are going to create our index page, and we are also going to maybe refactor our code just a little bit if it's necessary. Obviously, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We, you know, put out videos as much as we possibly can. And we also want to make sure that you hit us up on Twitter if you have any questions. You can find us at @_webdevhacks. And that's the best way to get a hold of us. And if you have any comments on this video, if you have any questions about something in this video, please go ahead and comment down below in the comments section, and I'll be sure to go ahead and try to answer your questions down in the comments. We also post an announcement up on our Twitter whenever we release a new video, or whenever we are working on post-production for the video, so make sure to follow that Twitter account as well to keep up to date with when new videos are going to be coming out. As always, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope that you have an absolutely wonderful day, and happy coding.